Hello, everybody. This is Leo Brady with AMovieGuy.com. I am so excited to be here today with a director who I have been following, I feel like from the beginning, whose work I really love. And we're here to talk about her new film. And we're here also with her writer. That's Megan Griffiths and Eliza Flug. Thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This is so great. So a lot of these questions might end up being like dual questions. So I've been starting my interviews off by asking directors and actors that I talk with, what was there a moment your parents introduced you to movies that made you say, I love cinema, I want to make cinema, or I love movies or storytelling and I want to write these stories?
Well, I'll go first if you want. I always like to, I feel like I watched a lot of movies growing up, especially when I was in high school. Like I'd always have friends over for like movie parties and stuff. And one of the films I watched when I was in high school was like a VHS of The Graduate, which was not a new film. I'm not that old, but at that point it was, a classic already. But I feel like I just remember noticing the transitions and the way that it was the sort of the directorial and editorial choices that were being made in a way that I really hadn't noticed them in other movies as I'd been growing up. It just started to dawn on me that that was something that was someone's job, and that that was a job that I could maybe have. So yeah, that was probably it for me. How about you, Eliza?
Yeah.
Oh, I was one of those people that walked around with a pen and a journal in her hand all the time, like age 3 and up. And I would sit under a desk while my dad did his business stuff, and I would draw and make up stories. And I got behind the camera a little bit when I was younger, in my 20s at Parsons. And I went off to Italy, and I thought I was going to be a cinematographer. And it ended up being a chef instead for a while. Like I kept finding stories and all the things that I was doing, but it ended up being, I put everything back into a journal and into a book. And I was like, someday I'm going to use all this stuff that I've written down and maybe make some movies. So I was stalking Megan for about 13 years before I got to really work with her. So
yeah. Well, that's also a good segue, because the two of you worked together on Sadie, which is such a that was such a powerful film for Megan. I think that movie sort of like really showed a shift in her like storytelling style. But that brings you to Year of the Fox. And this movie feels like it really is kind of piggybacking off of what Sadie did in some ways. But how did the two of you come together to make this film?
Why don't you start, Eliza, because you were there first.
I had been trying to write something about some of my experiences that were not so pleasant, and to find a way to make them relatable to other people. And I really admired Megan's previous work. And I felt very emotionally safe talking to her and confiding in her about what I was thinking. And I'm not sure what voodoo magic she used on me, but all of the glop that was in my writing material was sort of dissipated. Like, she's a very good editor, and it was very easy for me to bring information and say, hey, what do you think of this? And to hear her feedback on that. So a 164-page script got mashed down to 105 pages that then was edited again to 96. And yeah.
I always think everything's better when it's as concise as possible. So I guess it's like editor by necessity, just in terms of my personal philosophies on these things. But yeah, Eliza she sent me this script in the summer of 2020. So we were in high pandemic mode. And I just was really taken in by it. Like, I just felt like it was such an interesting story. It was such a world that was so new to me, but the character of Ivy was such a great conduit to get into this world and observe it, because she is sort of an outsider on the inside. She still is able to sort of look around at the community she's in and she's still trying to understand it. And she's not taken in by the sort of all the baked in
the word might be debauchery even in a way.
debauchery is probably a good word. Yeah.
Like not succumbing to what everybody else has already given into, right?
Yeah, it's certainly a temptation, I think, but there is like a distance there that lets her be more of an observer. And I found that to be a really interesting point of view. And Eliza's sort of history and ability to tell this story and her authority to sort of talk about this world, I just was really sort of on board right away.
Yeah. Well, and then Megan talked about sort of the editing process too, but Eliza, like, as she said, there's two sides to this. There's Aspen and then there's Seattle. I mean, like, it does feel like sort of dual storytelling. So when you're writing, did you find yourself using a little bit of a different sort of viewpoint of the words you're putting down on the page, or did it feel almost like writing two separate scripts and bringing them together as one?
I could see how that would be taken that way, but it was actually what was happening to me in my teens. A lot of that actually happened. So I was a little bit younger than 17, actually, when I moved from Aspen. My parents divorced and I moved to Seattle, and we had this gorgeous waterfront house in Medina, and I'd moved from Red Mountain Ranch in Aspen. And both are very polarizing and isolating environments when you live in a 20 bedroom house and you're the only kid in it. And so I had a lot of time to think about how lucky I was and how strange it was to live that way. And very unrelatable because I am adopted as well.
Yeah.
So all of that went into the script because these were the things I felt like in this day and age, people are talking about identity so much. And I thought young people would relate to this character more if I really dug a little deeper about some of the things I still struggle with in my 40s. So
yeah, well, and for you too, Megan, I mean, this is an interesting thing. So you made Sadie, and then you kind of stepped into television streaming. You directed like a couple episodes of stuff here and there, and I know, again, not to sort of, I don't want to say dig it up or make you talk about sort of tough things, but like, I know Lynn passing away was such a sad moment for a lot of people in the film community. But it kind of felt like you took a little bit of a break from making a movie, and now you've come back with Year of the Fox. So did you find yourself sort of growing a little bit and changing before making this, or was this sort of a nice welcome back for you to just make a new movie?
Yeah, I mean, I do think certainly having a close friend pass away is something that changes you, and it sort of makes you think about everything in a little bit different way. Also, Lynn was such a I mean, she was my friend, but she was also a mentor and sort of a role model for me in the world of filmmaking and television. And so, making the choices, like I made a bit of a deliberate choice to step away from features for a little bit after Sadie in order to build up my television resume and try to make a sustainable living in this industry, which is a very challenging thing to do, and something that Lynn was able to do really well, and balance continuing to make independent features that were close to her heart and things that she wanted to do. So I'm certainly trying to follow that path. Not to mention, like, we all went through a pandemic, which changed everyone, and slowed down production quite a bit. Yes, this, and I made another feature called I'll Show You Mine before this, that is a much smaller film that I made with the Duplass brothers. So, but yes, that was sort of a return to feature filmmaking, which is truly where my heart lies, but just a challenging world landscape right now.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, because I've seen almost all of your films, so it's like I feel like I've been following you a little bit on this journey, and it's interesting because what I actually love about your films, whether it was Night Stalker or working with Toni Collette, I always find your films, you have incredibly authentic characters, and you're never playing games. You're not going to like sugarcoat it. You're not going to like cast the person who looks like the A star celebrity, or you're not gonna you know change a story to fit a narrative that would not be truthful. I almost like to describe it as like wonderfully messy. Would you say, what's the reason why you gravitate to stories like this, like Eliza's, that sort of like show just great human sides of people?
I like wonderfully messy. I'll
Yeah.
totally on that. Yeah, that's, I mean, I think that I'm just incredibly interested in the messy world of human interactions and frailties. And, you know, I am, I always say the reason I make movies is to try to understand behavior that seems so foreign to me. And so, because it gives you the opportunity to get in different people's heads and really approach material from like a whole different perspective. So, and I do try to like humanize the characters as much as I can, even people who are doing bad, you know, being the bad guy or doing bad things. And so this movie had a great opportunity to like, I think it's easy to, it's natural and easy to sympathize with a character like Ivy, because she's a pretty innocent person being led into a less innocent world. I think it's harder to have sympathy for some of the other characters and empathy and try to figure out what is making all of them do what they do. And so that was what I was trying to bring into it. So it's nice to know that's coming across.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and two, this might have been a difficult task. You obviously had to cast somebody to play Ivy, and for like Eliza, this is essentially somebody playing you in a way. So, I mean, Sarah Jeffery, her performance, for somebody like me, I've never seen the Descendants series, and I hadn't seen her do a lot of work before. But she is really like a powerhouse here. She takes it all on. She is like absolutely perfect. Can you talk about the process of casting her? Did you have to get Eliza's approval on this? And was that something that you were like, Eliza, I need you to sit in with the casting because we need
Oh
to
yeah. Well, yeah, and Eliza's the producer of the film as well. So like we were in it together all the way through, not just casting,
Okay.
through pre-production, post, everything. But yeah, Eliza, why don't you start and talk about your sort of experience with the casting that role and looking at
Sarah
all.
had the best audition, period.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean, she really did. And Lexi Simonson, who auditioned to play Ivy, we ended up casting her as Layla, the best friend. So
Awesome.
in my mind, I had thought of the characters in one way, and that one would be one demographic and one would be another, but then that became too boring. It didn't reflect our current state in our world, and it didn't reflect the women that I know, period. And I realized I was out of touch with even with myself. And I think that's what happens when you hit 40, is you have to reframe to talk to a younger audience. And I saw Sarah's audition, and I just felt like, having nothing to do with her millions of followers on TikTok or any of the other things,
Right.
she really, I mean, she's extraordinary. The music, everything that she's doing, she's going to be huge. She's also in a Tyler Perry movie with Oprah
Oh, awesome.
that she just wrapped. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, she's on her way, and we were lucky enough to get her. So we thank our lucky stars for her completely.
Yeah, she really was. Her audition was excellent. Her callback and everything. And I did a thing too where I cut together auditions with people who are auditioning for Ivy, people who are auditioning for Layla, to see how they would play against each other, because we didn't have the option of doing in-person sort of chemistry reads or anything like that. And so we kind of went off of that, and because they just seem like they fit, they seem like they'd be friends, they seem like they read well together, even though they weren't in the same room. And then when they met, they became instant best friends. They're still
In
like,
real life.
all the time.
Yeah. I mean, they love each other, and I'm so excited that they're both coming to the premiere on Saturday. So
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So two more questions, if I have it, time for it. Megan, you always have great music in your movies. You've got great music in this movie. Music seems to be literally just like something that you work on. Talk about getting some of these songs. I mean, I know that's sometimes like is like half the budget for some from some independent films, and you've got like a great collection here. It really sets the mood in so many sequences of this film.
Well, yeah, I mean, music is a huge part of any period piece. And this is, even though I don't like to think of the 90s and the late 90s specifically as period, it is a long time ago. And so, yeah, we needed to find things that would place people in that time. And also, not just songs from the 90s, but songs that might have been playing in an ice rink in the 90s, which is like 80s songs, and then songs that the dad was listening to, which is 70s songs. So we really had to dig in and find all these tracks. And then we worked with a music supervisor named Joe Rudge and Kyle McKeveny to like try to secure all the rights. And yeah, it wasn't cheap, but I think it's really effective as well. And I think it works really well with our score, which was done by St. Kilda, who did the score for Night Stalker and Eden, and off hours, and they just know how to set a mood like no one else. So I think that between those two things, the music really fleshes the whole story out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then Megan, you're no stranger to working with like unbelievable actors. I just can't believe sort of like, it feels like to me every movie that you have made so far, you're bringing in somebody that like deserves these moments, deserves to like get back into the sphere of like, no, this person is a great actor and they should be continuing to make like big budget films. But like Jane Addams and Jake Weber, they're both like so perfect here in this. Working with the two of them, is that something that is literally just like easy as pie because they're such professionals, or did you have to sort of, did you both have to sort of like create a relationship with the two of them before making this whole project work?
I mean, I think we both had to I think with any actor, you have to create a trusting relationship. That's like a huge part of the job.
Yeah.
And they're relying on Eliza to fill them in on huge backstory questions and like make their characters as fleshed out as possible, and then me to make sure they're feeling authentic in the moment on set. So it was, definitely a build of that trust. And I think we both were really excited about having these two powerhouse actors on board. Eliza, you want to talk about them a little bit?
Jake is probably one of the most giving actors that I've met. He really is so professional, and at the same time, he really likes to connect with everybody on set, cast, crew, and he did so in a gentle way. And I think that's why he's in so many of these amazing films, and you see him and his performances kill. If you ever seen Pushing Tin, he laps Billy Bob Thornton in the acting department with his special members only windbreaker. So there's that. and then Jane Addams is probably the finest character actress out there right now. And with her role in Hacks and her new role with Tessa Faye on HBO, where she's playing with Lily Rose Depp. I mean, she's killing it. So we were really excited to work with them, and they were very approachable and easy to be around. And Jake in particular was very musical. He wanted a soundtrack. So I was like, just channel Floyd and the Who,
Yes.
the dad character down.
Dad rock.
Yeah, total dad.
He got it. And I want to give a shout out to Amy Renee casting as well, because she really helped pull all of these people together who are so great and has done so on lots of movies of mine. And so big shout out to her.
Awesome. Well, both of you, thank you so much for talking with me today. Year of the Fox has its premiere this Saturday at the Seattle International Film Festival. Very exciting time for both of you, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was good to see you.
You too. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.